Hello, welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. Today we have a really exciting episode where we're going to talk about all things immersive experiences, new technology, AI, and the way those new pieces will impact those immersive experiences. And then we have an interview with Kathy.isaacs from 22 Miles, a company that specializes in digital signage and working on these new pieces of technology as well. And we have some more pleasantries for after that interview planned out for later. Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast.
Where am I at? Where? Oh, there I am.
I'm supposed to add you during the video, and I didn't. So
Yeah.
everyone grill me in the comments below.
How's it going, Cleet? Did you get enough sleep last night?
Going well.
Did you sleep well?
Actually, I did.
Okay. You're still asleep.
Thank you for asking. I had a great night's sleep. I work early in the mornings quite often, and today I got to sleep until 8:30. And I mean, I work so early. I go to bed at like 10 at the latest, So yeah, that's 10 and a half hours of sleep. So I feel great. How about you? Did you get a good night's sleep?
Are you a coffee drinker?
I used to be, but now I'm just an energy drinker, which is worse.
Oh, what is your drink of choice in the morning?
A white monster. Zero Ultra
White
Monster. Wow, they're so good. They're so good.
So you're in your caffeine crash right now.
Well, I slept for so long. I was like, I don't even need it today. Yeah, so
all right.
Doing good. How about you? Are you a coffee guy in the morning?
Oh my goodness. My tagline last week was not any joke. This is not a thing. I am the I forget what it was, but espresso drinking extraordinaire.
Okay.
We have a coffee bar in our house.
Oh wow.
Actually, when we bought our house back in 2020, which pandemic, there's no better time to move a house than in the middle of the pandemic. But when we went through our house to look at it, we saw there's like I guess some houses they call it like the butler's pantry or whatever it would be. It's just like a little hallway between a kitchen and a dining room. Which, by the way, we don't even use a dining room, but we have it's in there. The little hallway there. I walk down like, okay, that's a coffee bar. I don't care what anything else in the house is. That's a coffee bar. So we got the espresso maker, the ice maker, the actual coffee maker, and a dessert maker, and a bank of Tirani syrups. And
okay, that's good.
Cabinets, and we got all the other stuff. So yeah, a little bit of a coffee drinker.
So yeah, major. What's your favorite coffee beverage? Are you going just straight espresso, latte, macchiato, chai?
No. I do a mocha basically. I've gotten to do that, and I've had a coffee bar. I've had an espresso machine for a decade or so, maybe longer. I still can't do coffee art. And usually when I try, it usually comes out looking like something very inappropriate. So I've just stopped. So there's probably some sort of business opportunity there somewhere, but it's PG-13 at best when I try to make it. And it's not intentional. It's just I can't do coffee art.
Okay. PG-13 at best. That's a wild phrase.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed today, I'm actually wearing a very particular piece of clothing here on this shirt.
Oh, coffee, by the way.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're not joking. That's pretty good right there. Very relevant.
Sorry, go ahead. Your shirt
is quickly becoming a vintage article of clothing right here. If anyone knows now, comments below. But this is the Kings Island Ride Operator's shirt.
Oh.
I don't think I'm supposed to have this. No, I think I was supposed to turn it in. Yes. But what are they going to do now? They're going to come to my house? So, yeah.
I don't know. I happen to live 5 minutes from there. I'm going to get a knock on the door, and someone's going to come and try to collect it from me.
Yeah, probably.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
They can't use it now. It's a Cedar Fair. At least I assume they're not still using it.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not paying attention when I go there.
Okay, there's a question.
That's interesting. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll make that priority next time I visit.
Yeah, check it out.
I'll have an answer next week.
Okay, good. Exciting. Very exciting. All right, so we got some things to get into for the immersive experiences conversation this week on the
Yes.
Attractions Group podcast. Exciting. I love immersion, and obviously
Yes.
experiences are all of entertainment. So where should we start? How do you want to dive into this, David?
Well, it's interesting because we've had our guest booked on here for a while. It's been actually she was supposed to be one of our first interviews, and it she had something come up and had a meeting she couldn't get out of, and so she was rescheduled here. But honestly, the IAPA Daily News that I believe both you and I get as well. But the one of the first headlines in there was "Tech Innovations Transform Theme Park Experiences." And technology changes. What's brand new today is obsolete tomorrow,
Right,
and so it's a big gamble by park organizations, park operators, presidents, marketing people to make an investment on X, hoping that it's going to be relevant for a number of times. Because you look at the different parks that have whatever experience that they've had, attraction that was groundbreaking when they installed it, and then a couple of years it just becomes average.
right.
And it's going to be some of what we get into with Kathy.isaacs here later. But as far as it goes to how technology affects the guest experience, what are some what do you define as an immersive experience?
Well, I would say that an immersive experience is about the setting, which I think is
Okay.
not the typical answer, because I think oftentimes you're going to hear the story as the answer to kind of what is an immersive experience. But I don't think every single immersive experience has to tell a story. I think the real common link is the setting. You have to have some bit of what I'm going to call hyper reality, like some heightened level of setting, some heightened level of place. This is every little detail around me is creating the illusion that I'm in some location. So I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
If I'm at, let's talk about Knott's Berry Farm, right? If I'm at Knott's Berry Farm's
Okay.
ghost town, that walking through there is without a doubt, I think, an immersive experience. You're pass a guy who's blacksmithing and you can talk to him and he'll respond to you in character, just like he's a real guy from an old ghost town in the Wild West, and he's really just a blacksmith who has to get up and work every day forging weapons for cowboys to go hunting with. That's cool and super immersive, but that's not telling a story exactly. Like, I could walk through there and be a part of the story of this ghost, but there's
Hmm.
no like plot. There's no, so I, to me, that's, I think, what I would say an immersive experience is. It's in some way or another, you're entering into a location, a physical one, maybe a digital one one day, but I don't think we're there yet.
Hmm.
But a physical location that has transported you to somewhere that you are not. But how is that kind of what you're
Okay.
thinking as well, or how would you
I
try
think
to define it?
I think so because I like what you said because I jotted it down here. There's storytelling and there's setting,
Yep.
and there's two different things. Now, I would contend that when Matt Eckert was on a number of weeks ago
Yeah.
from Holiday World, when he was talking about the roller coaster Good Gravy, I think in that roller coaster, in that family coaster, you got a little bit of both. You got
Yep.
some storytelling because you go through the line queue, and I haven't been there. I'm probably going here in a couple of weeks, but I haven't been there yet to see this. But it sounds like from the time you enter the line, you're kind of immersed in your grandma's house, and there's different not storytelling, but there's different pieces of the setting along the way to remind you of that.
Yep.
Everything from the vintage kitchen table. So there's a little bit of element there that brings both those together, but not every place has that. I mean, definitely you go to a place like Universal or Disney, and that's not fair to the seasonal parks because
Yeah.
they
Right.
sometimes don't have the IPs to do that. But you go into their different areas, you're there. The Star Wars land at Hollywood Studios.
Right.
When you cross through the I don't know the pathway, whatever you want to call it, you're the, I mean you're there, and so that also has the setting is heavy there, but it also does a little bit of storytelling. So I think the components of immersive experiences comprises both, and you can have one or the other, but you can also have both. I think it goes a little bit past that to um, there's guest experience, but there's also customer service.
Sure.
The rank and file, the associates, the cast members, the employees, whatever you want to call them, they play into that also. They may not be characters in the story, but how they react to guests affects that.
Yep.
So I think it's very encompassing.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that we talk about immersive experiences like I like what you point out about the IPs, right? Like Ghost Town doesn't use any IPs at Knott's Berry Farm.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, your first thought is like Galaxy's Edge, Wizarding World, these things. But
Right.
like, have you ever been to the Georgia Aquarium? Like, it
We were going to
is.
go when we were driving to Florida, and when you drive to Florida from Ohio, you kind of
Yeah,
you get stuck in that. Okay, I don't want to pull off the road for 2 hours, or however long it is. I just want to get from point A to point B.
yeah,
That was on the docket, but it just never happened.
yeah. I don't blame you, but
So no.
it's immersive. Like it is. You get there and you're immersed, and it's not a fictional place, right? You're immersed into the ocean. That's a place you could just go and immerse yourself in,
Hmm.
but it makes it way more accessible to people who don't want to like spend lots of money on scuba diving lessons and equipment, uh, and it also makes it so much more informational because now not only are you immersed and everything around you in every direction, every little detail is like you're in the ocean, but there's little placards and things you can read and shows you can watch about
Hmm.
what you would be seeing if you were really there that you wouldn't know to ask about. So I think it's cool that more and more we're getting better and better at being immersive without the use of IPs. But of course, also there is something super amazing about seeing stories come to life that like
Hmm.
your Disneys and your Universals do.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be physical. It can be digital.
Yep.
There's a lot of places that can do it. There's a lot that you can do with the digital now,
Yeah.
as far as visual is concerned.
Yeah.
There's places that, and even Chuck Mingo, that was on the show a couple weeks ago, it discussed a little bit about the immersive experience that they have at the church that he works at with
Yeah.
immersive experiences, which is kind of a foreshadowing because Chuck is coming back in a couple weeks to talk a little bit more about that. And we'll leave that for another time. But the technology and the investment in technology to do that, to be intentional about it, not to just throw something out there for the sake of being flashy about it,
Yeah.
but to be intentional about what story you're trying to tell, what kind of setting you're trying to get in,
Mm-hmm.
to put people in, because they come to a park, they come to a venue, they come to a baseball game to be removed from reality for that time, whatever they spend there, and every little thing from you know what the parking lot looks like for when you enter through the gate to pay for the parking, to go through the gate, what kind of different touch points, what multi-sensory things are there to affect that, and conversely, what are the employees like?
Yeah.
Employees can have a big impact on that,
Oh yeah.
good and bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
I
think.
know there's been.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead. Well, I
A
was
number
just.
of years ago, there's
You go. You go. You go.
See, that's what happens when you have a lag on your
I guess
on
so.
the
Right.
uplink. A number of years ago, there's a park that I did some consulting for some theme parks back in the smaller theme parks back in a decade or so ago, which I did a lot. I like guest experience. I like the trying to be creative in how to immerse people in whatever, to take them out of their element. And I haven't done that in a number of years, but I still like to dabble or like to think that I'd come into it. But it seemed to me that one of the parks that I worked with at the time, their solution to um, employees engaging with customers or guests, whatever you want to call them, was to throw more employees at the situation. And I mean, you can't take a bunch of fives and equal 10. In one of the things I suggested that they never took advantage of, that they never did. I don't know. Maybe it was good on paper, good idea on paper, wouldn't have worked. But I thought, hire fewer people, more qualified people, pay them more, and try that for a sign.
Yeah.
Because having five people doing one function just clearly wasn't working for them, because you have some that's just kind of standing around blank look on their face.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen the type,
Yeah.
but but that can have a big impact on guest experience and how immersive something is, because you have disaffected employees for whatever the reason may be. Maybe they're just having a bad day, but it
Yeah.
can still affect what the guest is experiencing.
Well, right. And not only can it affect the guests through directly them seeing that and that breaking the mold of the immersion or them not getting the service that they need, getting the answer to the question that they needed answered, but also it affects the other employees because now all
Hmm.
of a sudden I'm working hard and I see these other guys not, and I'm like, what's the deal here?
Hmm.
You know, why is the playing field not equal? So I'm with you. I think that there is certainly a level of like pressure. The stakes are quite high with having employees that are
Hmm.
doing their job well and being what they should be. And so I want to talk about that for a second too, because like the role of any theme park employee that's working out in the theme park to me is not whatever they think they're doing. If you say you're a ride operator, you're a ride operator. If you say you're a ticket taker, you're a ticket taker. If you're custodial, you're custodial. All those things are great. But at the end of the day, before you are in custodial, before you're in park services, before you're in food and beverage, you're there to help people enjoy the park.
Hmm.
If I'm in food and beverage, ultimately what I'm doing is giving you food. Like ultimately, that's what I'm doing. Of course, I have to take
Right.
money from you and so forth, but like I'm there to help you find what you want, be nourished, get a good meal, and then answer your question about what ride you should go to
Get
next.
nourished, get nourished with theme park food. I like
With
that.
yes, with pizza and funnel cake.
Yeah.
But there's this real sense in which like if you're a theme park employee, that's your world, and someone else is stepping into it. And regardless of
Hmm.
what your job description is, there, the most important task you have every single day when you step in is help those people as their tour guide, as their guide to that new world that they've stepped into.
Hmm.
I just think that's a really important piece that needs to be put into, and I think it is. That's what like look, I was told that at every park I worked at, but that's a huge piece to understand when you're getting up every day to go work in a park.
It is, and I think it comes down to training on that also. In really all the immersive experience begins at the guest level. It is you can do that with visual, you can do that with settings, you can do it with props, whatever it is. But the one-on-one interaction between guest and park employee,
Mm,
that's where it starts at, because
yep.
you can have any immersive experience you want on the inside of the park, but if they have a bad experience with the person taking the ticket or scanning the pass, whatever, on their way in, you already lost them. And
Yeah.
not that you can't get them back, but you have to work harder about getting them back.
Yeah.
And it's also the physical structures in taking care of those. There's a couple things that when I did some consulting back in the day, it was their entranceway was kind of nondescript. It was a water park, and but they had on the sidewalk leading up, they had trash in the park. On the sidewalks, the trash was overflowing, and this is a water park. People are walking around barefoot. The last thing you want to think about
Yeah.
is walking on the mustard or walking on someone's ketchup.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that it's out of sight, out of mind when you're not thinking about it. But as a guest, these are things that go through your mind. You're not thinking about attendance. You're not thinking about, is this right over here broke, like the management is. But the guest is thinking about that. So you got to keep in mind, this is either someone who's going to leave us a glowing review online and come
Mm-hmm.
back, or they're going to leave us a bad review and never come back. And
Yeah.
by the way, a good review may get a couple people to come, but a bad review makes sure people don't,
Yeah.
or a certain number of people. So it's definitely all guest facing, and you have to do whatever immersive experience you want with the guest in mind.
Yeah. So I'm a cast member at Walt Disney World. I'm not talking on behalf of the Walt Disney Company in any way, but I was talking to one of my coworkers at Disney, and he told me he comes in and his goal is to be forgotten, just to not be remembered in a given day. Because if they have a bad experience with him, they're going to make sure they remember his name and let somebody know that they had a bad experience with
Hmm.
him. But if he just gave them the answer they needed and a little extra tip and a map for their little kid and sent them on their way, that's just part of the fun, right? He doesn't need anything, just I just want to be forgotten. And I think that's a really good attitude to approach
Hmm.
any public facing job, and not just theme parks, not just entertainment, but also, food service, but also being a receptionist at a hospital, whatever it might be.
Hmm. Well, okay, going on from the subject that we've been talking about with immersive experiences, we have a little bit of someone coming on here that might know a little bit about how some of those things can interact and where the basis of it come from. Our guest today is Kathy.isaacs. She is vice president of sales from at 22 Miles, based out of Atlanta, and works specifically with digital signage and wayfinding. So, Kathy, welcome from Cincinnati to Atlanta and
Thank
in
you. Thank
Orlando,
you
I
so much
guess.
for having me. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for coming on.
Yes, yes, of
Now, a little
course.
bit of backstory here. Uh, Kathy and I had worked alongside each other for what was it, 2 or 3 years? At least
Hmm.
two, maybe three. I don't know. I don't think it was any longer than that. But we did beat that drum of the digital wayfinding and had tried to get
Hmm.
that in. We exhibited at the IAPA Expo once or twice I
Hmm.
believe. And so there's a little bit of a back and forth here. But welcome to the podcast, and let's get into it.
Thank you.
So, Kathy, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then get into what you do at 22 Miles and what 22 Miles as a company does.
Sure, sure. As you just already mentioned, I'm here in Atlanta. This is where our headquarters is for 22 Miles. I'm the vice president of sales, which means that I get to work with a lot of our different customers of all different markets. We do work with entertainment, but also healthcare and higher education, and pretty much any place that needs our help. I've got a great team that I work with, both my other salespeople, but our creative team, always inventing new cool things. We just love that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All
Cool,
right.
very exciting. So tell us a little bit about 22 Miles in particular and the sorts
Sure.
of venues and projects that they have been working on.
Oh, absolutely. So we have been involved in digital signage for 17 years. We invented something called 3D interactive wayfinding, but we will do anything with digital signage and wayfinding. About half of our employees are software developers, so we're always first to market with products, and we really listen to our customers. What have you dreamed up that we can help you, to actually bring to life? So we just love that creative part of it. And again, we work with anyone from the Cleveland Cavaliers. We work with a couple of cruise lines like Royal Caribbean Cruise and some others. And we are in any kind of venue you can imagine, whether it be convention centers, hotels. So we are just involved in making sure that the guest has a really good experience. That's what we're all about, is that guest experience.
Has there ever been a situation where a client comes to you and says, "We got this idea for what the wayfinding can do in this right here. It needs to do this or this or this,"
Yeah.
and you get yourself back scratching your head like, I don't know, and then you take it to your designers, and then and then something pops out. So, what
Yeah.
in those scenarios of the just outlandish requests that a client can come to you with, how much of that percentage wise do you think that can be done actually?
Yeah, I would tell you about half of our new features come from our customers, because they know what's going on in their daily life even more than we do. So we love to hear from them. And you're exactly right. When they come to us, they say, "This is what we'd like to do. This is what we envision. And can you make it happen?" So then I take it back to our developers and talk to them about it, and then they just get working on it. And sometimes they come back to us as like, "Do you think this would be good?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's way better than we ever thought it was going to be." So, for example, somebody had asked us, with our wayfinding for our navigation. Generally, it's a navigation line that people follow, but somebody
Hmm.
had asked, "Gee, do you think you can actually have like a character walking, for something like that?" And so it's like, "Yeah, we can do that." So we have a university that we work with, and their mascot actually happens to be an elephant. And we were able to just have this really cool elephant that looks exactly like their mascot, just walking along the wayfinding line.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, we can do that. So now we can offer any 3D image, to any of our customers, because somebody had requested that. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get something to happen, and sometimes we might need to wait for, our next version to come out to include it. But generally, we can work it out, um, just kind of thinking it through and making it happen.
So,
Cool.
if you could think, what is what is the oddest thing, or most creative? We'll put most creative, not odd. Most creative thing that someone asked for your engineers to do that they could actually accomplish.
Um, I think that one of them would be we had a mall in another country, and they wanted to have 16 different languages on the wayfinding so that anybody can choose a language and then just do it. And we had never done 16 of them. And also, some of them were more character driven than our regular alphabet. And then they were able to do it, and they just pulled it off. And we're like, we never thought we could do that many. So that's kind of
Wow.
one of them that's a little, but they're always functional. Sometimes they're just plain old fun. We've had projects where we have digital signs that go in circles or up or down, or, we had one that was, I think, 25 different displays in this crazy arrangement. So yeah, we just like to be creative.
So let's talk for a second about this languages thing, because this is
Yeah.
very interesting to me. So in the theme park world right now, there is a huge, let's call it a renaissance, or a huge
Mhm.
birthplace of fertile crescent, so to speak, of theme parks right now in the Middle East, in the Gulf
Yes.
Coast, the Persian Gulf in the Middle East. And
Nice
one
choice of
of the
words, by
big
the way.
thank you. Yeah, I try to be a poet sometimes, and I fail pretty bad. But these parks are meant for everyone. They are meant to draw people
Hmm.
from
Yes.
Japan and the United States and the United Kingdom and Norway
Hmm. Yeah.
and more. And
Hmm.
of course, every place I just mentioned speaks a different language than each other, but by the way, also speaks a different language than this crescent of new theme parks.
Yes. Yes.
So language, like, this is a
Yeah, yep, we can
hugely
take care of that. No, you're absolutely right. So
important.
yeah, when we had those 16 languages, it was for somebody to just touch the screen and it changed everything to those languages so that someone
Yeah.
could read the screen properly. But we now have our AI assistant, obviously run by, driven by AI, where somebody can actually speak, and generally it's the mobile version, but speak their own language and ask questions like, where a particular roller coaster is, or perhaps we'd like to have lunch and we're a family of four, with children that are toddlers, what's the best place for us to go? And it will find a restaurant for them that is appropriate for children and has children, type of food that they might like, toddler food, and it will answer them back in their own language. So now not only can you see it on the screen, you can literally interact with it, with the AI, ask it any question you want in any language, and it will speak back to you in that same language.
Wow. That is
Yeah,
so
That's
it's
cool.
incredible.
love
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yes. Wait, no, come on. Notice my. Let's see if I can point to it. My
I did see
there.
that, David.
There we go. That's very
Yep.
sarcastic because I am by no means an expert. I do like
And we
AI
just
though.
know
It's
AI it may be taking things over one day. So we may have AI overlords, but they won't be us.
yeah, there'll be some idiot
I
like
know that.
me.
I think there'll be a robot. Pretty sure
So,
there'll be a robot.
so let's talk about AI for a second. Let's talk about AI for a second because it literally everyone's got an opinion and it can be across the spectrum
Yeah.
as to what AI means to different industries. And theme park industry is definitely one of those that's really on a crash course getting
Hmm.
into it. I would contend there's no such thing as an expert because it changes so often. By the time you could declare yourself an expert, you're still catching up to the next
Yes.
day. And with technology changing so fast, how can AI help with your digital signage
Hmm.
and the wayfinding experience for the guests? And how is that something that if you install on day one,
Hmm.
technology changes on day two,
Hmm.
how does that technology keep up so that the technology just installed isn't obsolete within the
No,
second month?
that's a great question. Great question. I know that every day something new is coming out and it's super exciting, but it's really hard to keep up. So I agree with that.
Hmm.
For us, for AI at this point, it really is taking the information that is already in the theme park's kiosk or digital signage, and it basically acts as a database. And so then when somebody asks a question, the AI can figure out what they're really asking, and then get the information back to them. As far as keeping everything up to date, as long as the information is up to date in that kiosk, our software will always be up to date. We're constantly making sure that it's cutting edge, using whatever AI LLMs are out there, and really doing some of our own as well. it is really important that you have to keep up everything, and you've got to have those developers that understand AI and know how to work with it. And again, that's an advantage of our company. We were started by someone who is a technician, will always be an IT kind of nerd guy. So it's something that you just have to look and say, is your vendor really, keeping up with everything? So yeah, um, it does change a lot. I think people's expectations are different as well. Like you said, some people love AI, some don't. Some think that it's going to save the world, which I think it will get close to that. We'll see. But I think the biggest thing is that guest experience again. We don't want the technology to go so fast that they don't feel comfortable using it. So we really only change it when we get to the point that we know the user experience is really, really good. So we don't want to change too fast.
So let's talk about that guest experience a little more. That's
Mhm.
that's what I always care about most when you're talking
Sure.
about a theme park. And we talked about like the languages. I love an example like that because it's so concrete. It's so
Mhm.
clear to see this is obviously better for everyone.
Yes.
Like are there other things you can point to with AI and the way it's changing digital signage that are on that same sort of concrete look at this? This is how we're doing it better than we've ever been able to do
Yeah.
before because of artificial intelligence.
Yeah. I think that there's two ways of looking at it. One is from the user of the system. So the person who's in charge of getting all of that content out onto the screens, the
Okay.
digital content, they want to be able to do that as fast as they can. And so there's a lot of AI ways that AI can help with that, whether it's helping them to create content, for them to manage that content, and that's something that we help them with. So there's that side of it, because if there isn't good fresh content out there, it's not correct. It's not working
Mm-hmm.
for anybody. It's certainly not working for the guest. So then the other half, of course, is that guest experience. And I think for the guests, there's two things. One is just getting information easily. What do I have to do? Do I have to press a bunch of buttons? Do I have to download an app? How do I get this information? And then how quickly can I get it? How is it really understanding what I'm asking? So for us, we do have our AI assistant, as I mentioned, on wayfinding. We also have a mobile version. It does not require a downloadable app. You just scan a QR code and you've got it. So it's very important, I think, for people to get information quickly. We might be a little spoiled that way, that we like everything yesterday. So that expectation is high, and we want to meet that expectation. And then being able to get them information in a way that they want it. So not just their own language, but just as I mentioned before, perhaps I've got my grandchild with me for the first time. Maybe someday I'll have one. I have a grandchild with me who's like 6, and I only want to be able to go on rides that are appropriate for this 6-year-old. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to tease them with a ride that's clearly not something that's appropriate for them. Can I somehow search for that information? This is just the question I'm asking, and that's where AI is really helpful. We're not just saying, here's all the rides, pick one that's close to you, or one that has a short waiting time. Those are all important, and we certainly can do that, and people want to know that. But I think people are really getting used to having things tailored to them. We're used to having things the way we want it, when we want it, and I think that's where AI is going to help a lot for everything we're doing.
Yeah, very cool.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
for guest experience and what you're talking about there, I want to bring up something from maybe a couple years ago, and if the technology's changed, please let me know, because I'm my certain AI databases only go back a couple years. With it, in
Right.
regards to the wayfinding, mine go back about maybe 24 months at most.
Okay.
So back a couple years ago, there was a situation that I think is brought on by COVID, which, by the way, what a stupid time to be alive. Anyway, that you could go up to a wayfinder, take your phone out, and photo the QR, and then the exact experience that you have in front of you on the screen now comes onto your handheld,
That is correct.
even to the point where you could even move the cursor around with your finger on your phone and one on the wayfinder. But
Yes.
is that, how can that be driven guests to the guest experience from getting from point A to
Yeah.
point B, more so than you're not just tethered to this 6 foot tall
Yeah.
unit here? Now you got it on your screen. And does that work throughout the park, or is it just something that works right in front of the machine?
It works throughout the park, but we basically have 3 different ways that you could use your mobile phone, because we all live on our phone now. One of
Mhm.
them is to scan a QR code on a non-touch screen. Perhaps it's a menu or it's a special. Maybe there's going to be a special event, next week, or there's a coupon they can use. They can scan that, and everything's on their phone, and they can just swipe through that content. Any other interactive content, they can scan a QR code, and everything that's on the screen is on their phone now, but they can now interact with it. So any touch button that would have been on that screen, they can now touch on their phone and again walk away with it, all without downloading an app, because we know we all have plenty of apps.
Mhm.
We don't need any more apps on our phone, I think.
Mhm.
But they can use that throughout the entire park. They don't have to be in front of a kiosk. And frankly, if the theme park allows it, it will still work even when they leave the park, which can be good if they want to be able to have some upcoming events that they want people to come back to the park.
Mhm.
What's really good about having on a mobile phone from the park's viewpoint is that they are able to make sure that their guests are seeing the messaging, because sometimes you're walking by, a display or a kiosk, and that message just wasn't up there 30 seconds ago. But if people can get things on their phone, their messaging is getting like a second life, to be seen on
Mhm.
somebody's mobile phone and share with somebody. It could be shared with someone beyond that.
And if I'm not mistaken, you can also get the data as a reporting back to marketing department, management, whatever, back on that. So now instead of having 5, 10 wayfinders in the park, you can have a couple thousand of them walking around,
You
all
can. And
giving the parks data.
Yep, absolutely. So yes, all of that, anything that's being touched or downloaded, that data is sent back to the park marketing team or whoever does their digital
Hmm.
signage. The other advantage of it too is that you can take a QR code from our system, and then you can print it and just put it anywhere you want, and somebody can scan that QR code and they get the mobile version of the wayfinding right where they are. So you don't need to have a kiosk at
Hmm.
every turn and every corner. You could put, QR codes where people get lost often. You could have put a QR code at each roller coaster, for example.
Hmm.
You could find out wait times no matter where you are, so you know where to go next. There's a wait time for this particular, ride is much longer than that one. I've got it on my phone. I could just figure out where I want to go. I can plan my journey in essence. I'm just doing it from my mobile phone without an app.
Cool. So I think there's kind of this progression that people have followed over the last since technology has been advancing, so forever, I guess. Um, in parks where, a long time ago, if you're in a big park,
Hmm.
you had to look at your map. You could try to plan out your day ahead of time, but you
Yeah,
didn't know what was going to be open when or what the wait times were going to be
Hmm.
and at various times in the day and you just didn't
yeah,
know.
right.
And as technology has been advancing, we've been able to know more. Now we have the wait times on our mobile app. We have a map on our mobile app. We have all these
Hmm.
things. But a lot of times it's not easy. It's not seamless to get all of the information together and plan your day
Yeah,
because the wait times are over here in this tab. And now I have to look at each individual menu for each restaurant that I might want to go to and then go back,
yes,
consult the map again. And you're flipping all around.
yeah.
And that's kind of created this culture sometimes in parks, especially big ones, that is a bummer to see, which is that people are on their phones a lot
Yes.
trying to keep their day planned. And that is
Yes.
not what you want. You want them to be enjoying the park and the setting and each other, by the way. So how can if we have AI to kind of parse through these things for us, do you think
Hmm.
that can, even though it is new technology, actually reduce the amount of time that people are spending interacting with
Yeah.
that technology?
Yeah, I would agree. And I'll look at that two different places. First of all, when I first went to my theme parks, it was literally a paper map. When you
Right?
would get the
Yeah.
paper map
Hmm.
and you hopefully get it the day before, you'd kind of plan where you wanted to go and you would just stand in line, and that's all. That's the information you had, and it was fine. But you were absolutely right. A neighbor of mine did just come back from a major theme park, and she said that they did spend so much time on their phone. They didn't get to enjoy the time with their children a lot. So there has to be something, between the two. And one of the advantages of having a kiosk is people can just walk right up to the kiosk, plan what they want, see it on a nice big screen, be able to make their choices, and then just move on without having to have it on their phone. So that's one advantage. But again, AI, it becomes that conversation that you're having. And if you've used AI much, it's almost like talking to a real person. And that's where AI would be great. To be like, you know what? we are going to start off at this particular ride. Then we want to have lunch, and it needs to be at 11 o'clock, and it has to have chicken fingers and, whatever it happens to be. And then AI would come back with like, this is your journey. This is your plan for today. What would be really cool, and I can't offer yet, but as we speak about it, it would be really great if that AI would change that plan if the wait times changed. So if we were to look at this and all of a sudden this attraction's wait time was really long and it's going to go right through the kids' lunch, maybe it'll tell you to go to lunch first. But those would be really cool. I would love to see that. So it could actually
If
change that journey for you without you even having to look at anything.
Yeah.
if
That would be
only we
ideal.
had a software company that could write that program.
I think I might know one.
You might
But
know
yeah,
one.
that would be the ultimate, and I think that would be true of any journey. Everything we do, we call a journey because that's exactly what it is.
So when it comes to developing a top end with all the features, digital wayfinding and interactive screens, and you install it at a park or a venue or ballpark,
Hmm.
basketball venue, whatever it is, and you deliver it and set it up and it's live.
Hmm.
From your perspective, percentage wise, based on all the features that you have there, how
Right.
many of those features does the venue, the management, the marketing, whoever, how much is actually utilized?
That they take advantage of wanting to put on their
Right,
project as far as features go.
right.
That's a great question because every single venue is different, and we'll talk to them about what their scenario is. Um, Certainly, they'll have a map. If it's, wait times would be very important, obviously. Places to eat, restaurants. I mean, I was working with one particular customer, and they had some of the like pop-up places or the little kiosks or wagons, where
Hmm.
like this. I kept getting lost because of it. It would be, this is the hot dog stand. It's over here today, but tomorrow that hot dog stand is going to be over there because there's an event happening here. So we just really have to understand what their scenario is. But
Hmm.
most certainly they take advantage of the wayfinding, usually restaurants, wait times, pop-ups to talk about a particular attraction or restaurant. So you could click on something, it'll pop up, maybe you name a ride or something. It's the whirly turly, whatever, whatever. And then, it'll say, this is what the attraction is. This is the height. This is the wait time. This is for somebody who, like me, I can't go upside down. My stomach doesn't like that. But, pop-ups for, more information. So we can go as deep as they want. And the only thing that stops us from that is them having the information. Do you have pictures of these? Do you have the wait times available?
Hmm.
But yes, those are kind of the features. And we like them to use as many of them because it's just that better guest experience.
One of the situation, or I guess the drawback I always saw when I was working in this space a couple of years ago, it always came from the standpoint of the venues. Number two things. Number one, the venues that we spoke to just really didn't understand the technology and what it did. And
Mm-hmm.
even if we tried to explain it, they still didn't. And my sense is that when a lot of it, and I've seen some experiences of this, I've experienced some of this in the couple of different parks I've visited, is that wayfinders and digital signage is installed, and from where I sit, completely underutilized. Almost like it was brought in, and it either wasn't explained properly or thoroughly,
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe a better way to put it, or the management just didn't have the horses on the ground to manage it. But for instance, there's I think a lot of times the wayfinders come in, they look like a wayfinder. It has the same structure. It looks like what it's supposed to, and people come up and you see fingerprints on it because they expect, well, it's 2025. You should be able to touch this and interact with it, unless it's 2020 and
Right,
you're not supposed to touch anything. But
right,
that's
right.
another
Oh, but we
story.
had a solution for that too, but go ahead.
But also, and take it to, okay, so if it's not interactive, you've got yourself a PowerPoint billboard,
You do.
essentially.
It's a map that's
It,
on a screen instead of paper, is what you
right.
have. Yes.
If you want a billboard, get a billboard. If you want a wayfinder, get a
Yeah.
wayfinder. Because there's
I
so
think
much.
that there's so much you can do, and I
Good.
think when you said it's underutilized, I think a couple of things. Whenever you have a display that's touch, you literally have to tell people it's touch. Touch here for directions. Touch here to get started. Touch here for
Hmm.
restaurant. Whatever it is, you want that to be really obvious, so that people understand why this is here. Otherwise, they don't. And again, you're right. Most people will touch a screen, whatever it is.
Yes.
They'll touch
Well,
a screen.
I would contend that one of the locations in a certain southern state that has different bus stations throughout, that the screens are not necessarily the bus station screens are not necessarily on eye level. They're up a little bit and
Mm,
they're off to the side, and they have fingerprints on them.
yeah,
Now, as long as I can tell, they've never been interactive.
right.
And not that, because it's kind of a bus schedule. You shouldn't have to. It doesn't have to be
But
interactive.
maybe you need to
But
ask something about a bus schedule, so you might want it to be interactive.
it's 2025. It's
Yeah.
or I guess at that time it's 2024. It's a screen. People in other places I go to, that it's a billboard that looks like a wayfinder. There's fingerprints all over it. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to
Well,
me, when I see that, it's like underutilized and opportunities missed.
I think that people also, we go back to that guest experience and expectation. The expectation is I can
Hmm.
have information and I need it now. So even if it is, for
Right.
example, in a bus area, it might be, well, when is the next bus? Or I need to come back from the park. What's the last bus? You want to be able to ask those questions. So people, whether it's Google or whatever you use, we're used to asking a question and getting an answer back. And I think it's going to even be more pervasive, given AI. I also think that a lot of people, we experience with a lot of different customers, they are in the park every day. They understand where everything is. It's very hard for them to be the guest. That guest is the first time person
Hmm.
there, or maybe
Yeah.
it's this time I'm going with my children and I didn't before, or we haven't been here in 2 years. Whatever it is, it's very hard for them to be the guest in that sense.
Hmm.
So that's partially why it's underutilized as well.
There's some that do walk the park. So, and big props to them. I was taught years ago, probably about 10 years ago, that one of the hardest things for a park general manager or a marketing department does is to get themselves out of their office and walk out, get in their car, drive away, and enter their park
Yeah,
as
be
if
the
it were the
guest.
first time. Yeah,
Yeah.
be the guest. Everything from how you pull into the parking lot to going
Mhm.
through the gate to first visual when you get there. And
Yeah.
it's visual. Is it interactive? Is it
Mhm.
what different sensory things are there? And it also goes, okay, is a paint chipped? Is there
Yeah.
trash on the floor? Is the trash overflowing? And just a matter of take yourself out of the office, walk out. And a lot of managers do that, and props them, because I'm sure their days are really busy, and
Mhm.
it takes a lot just to get them to go down the hall. But go out and drive in as if it were your first time to enter the park.
And it's hard to make your mind a blank slate because you've been to the
Hmm.
park and you know where certain things are, but you have to, pretend that you don't know. And sometimes it's good just to bring a guest with you who's never been there and just kind of follow behind them and
Hmm.
just experience the park through their eyes. And I would recommend that to anybody, especially people who don't realize people are getting lost or frustrated.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about accessibility too.
Oh,
That's a
I'm so
major
glad you brought that up.
yes, yes, that's a major challenge in theme parks, and I think that's another very
Yes.
related to this be the guest. It's hard
Yes.
for someone who has never been in a wheelchair to
Hmm.
realize that every single curb is a major challenge, and that
Yes.
just one step up is as big of a deal as a whole staircase.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
How can these wayfinding solutions and these park planning solutions help
Yeah.
with accessibility in their journeys as well?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is a very, very important point for us. Everything we do is ADA compliant. So it's not just the things that are great, it's the things that are required by law. So we make sure that we meet all of those requirements. And they could be anything from, again, that end user who is creating the content and getting it out to the screen, somebody who might be visually disabled, et cetera. But then also, of course, the guest experience. So for the guest experience, we always want to make sure, for example, if it's a big kiosk, that someone who's sitting in a wheelchair just can't reach the top, that everything can be flipped to the bottom so they can reach it. We want to make sure that they are wheelchair routes that are accessible for them. We want to make sure if they click on a button that shows that they have some mobility situation in their life, that this route's going to take them where it's not a bunch of stairs. Maybe it's something that's a path that goes uphill with no stairs. Maybe there's a path that's easier than going uphill. that's really tough too. We make sure that we have something that's just a big magnifying glass on the screen that they can use if they have a vision impairment, that it just makes everything super huge for them. We also have a screen reader. So if they click on that, it would read the screen for them. So really, we've been very deep into ADA. We've had people come into our office and we've said, please use this and tell us if you're having any more difficulties or what would you recommend. So ADA compliance and being able to help folks who might just need a little extra help, we're very into that. We just think it's super important. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Kathy, got a couple easy questions for you, maybe.
Okay.
Favorite park?
Oh, do I have to pick just one?
Okay, really top two.
No, I have to say that I'm still partial to Disney because that's kind of, my childhood and everything. And my children are older now, but I have such great memories from it. I have not yet been to Epic, so I would like to go to Epic. I don't know that it would change my mind, but it's a very different experience, and I have not had the opportunity to go yet. So that would be my next one. I would love to be able to experience the different parks in different parts of the world, as you mentioned. I watch with my son, several different YouTube channels that go to like Hong Kong Disney or Paris Disney or any of the others, and I get to watch them. I would love to be able to experience them as well because it's a different experience.
Totally.
Yeah. So that would be fun to do someday too.
So as the AI overlord, by the way, now see what I just did? I asked her a question and she didn't want to go with one. So like a good AI assistant would be, I pivoted on a second. So I went from 1 to 2.
Yes, you did.
You're teachable good. Moment there.
Yes, great job. Amazing.
Thank you, overlord.
So now what's your favorite ride?
Oh my gosh.
Two.
I'll have to think about my favorite ride. That's a tough one. This is an old one, but I like Space Mountain. Isn't that kind of crazy? Partially because it was when I was in high school a long time ago. Disney was relatively young then, the Disney park in Florida. And we were allowed to go on our class trip to Disney World from New Jersey. It was quite a hike.
Wow.
And we went. And Space Mountain was one of the rides we went on. And our principal had come with us. And he was on the ride. And he was screaming like a baby. I mean, he was just screaming like crazy. And we loved it. Here's a guy that's usually the disciplinarian, and we're all scared to death of him. And by this time, we're seniors and everything. But nonetheless, he was just screaming, and we just all got such a laugh out of it. So it's just a memory thing. That's all.
That's fun.
Now, you might have just said it, but funny story or just a memorable story about your time at a park?
Oh, well, that's one of them. One of the others was also at a Disney park. I don't know if it's still there. There was, and I'm forgetting. It was like the Western one where they would do like a jamboree.
The Country Bear Jamboree. Yeah,
there's that. But then they had the singers and the dancers and everything else. So this was a same trip, another teacher, and for some reason, they pulled someone from the audience, took them backstage. And when they came out, this teacher was in a fairy outfit, wings and a wand and a little tutu. I don't know how they convinced him to do it, but it was just the fact that everyone was just willing to have a good time. And when you go to a park like that, it's almost like you take off your everyday cloak, and you come into a park and you're a kid and you're having fun and you're trying things you never would try. I think it just takes you into an entirely different world, and that's what makes theme parks so fun.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yes.
How about you, Khalid? Do you have a funny park story?
I one or two maybe. One of my favorites. I don't think I've ever told this story, but you can actually find this video on the internet if you wanted to. I was at Six Flags St. Louis riding the Boss, which is a great ride. If you've never ridden the Boss, you gotta check it out. If you have back trouble, don't ride it. But otherwise, it is awesome. And I was recording a video of myself to post on YouTube where I was just raving about the boss. And my friend who I was at Six Flags St. Louis with just took a full cup of ice water and in the middle of the video dumped it on my head.
Nice.
Oh no.
Yes. So yeah, I mean that's what you're saying though. You know, theme parks are about having fun.
Yeah.
And
you can get away with a lot, yeah. And you'll have to send me that link because I want to see that.
So evidently in one take.
Yes.
Right.
And it's just a memory maker, you know. I mean, we all I don't. It's not just with your kids. You went. Some people went on their first date to a theme park, you know, or to like a Six Flags. I think we all had one near us, and that was like your cool date, first date. So just a lot of memories that you get there. It's a very special. They're all very special places.
Yes.
And sometimes
I do like the Herson slogan: "Create memories worth repeating."
Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right. That's great.
I think that's yours, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think it might be like create family entertainment through create. It's like some little lead in, but it's.
I think they use the word family
paraphrase.
entertainment. Yeah, they're based here in Atlanta, and I'm familiar with all of them.
Yeah,
great
cool.
People.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, so if people want to get in touch with 22 Miles or learn a little bit more about it, I can put the link to the website down in the description below.
Yes.
But is there any other places, outlets they should go to learn a little more?
I think that the website's the best, but feel free to put, you know, my email in there and I would direct them to the right place. But that's always a good start. There's a contact us page like there's on every website if they need anything. But yeah, anyone can email me personally. Happy to talk to anybody.
Awesome.
Now, Kathy, before we go on that though, if people want to get in touch with you, especially in the theme park space, the attractions industry, where are you going to be in the next week or two?
Oh, we are. Thank you for yes. So next week we will be at InfoCom, which is like the big digital signage trade show. It is in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center. We do have a booth there, so we'll be showing all kinds of projects, but certainly theme parks as well. Project for that. So anybody that wants to come by and see what we can do for them, we'd love to see them.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, your generosity, your willingness to share some expertise in this space. We really appreciate it. And we would love to have you back on one time on the Attractions Group podcast down the road, because we know there will be more to talk about with the way technology is advancing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. And yes, I would love to come back.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Kathy. All right.
So big thanks again to Kathy.isaacs. What a great interview. What a great just resource to have. So make sure to check out those links in the description if you have any more questions. I do want to move on a little bit and talk. We've been on immersive experiences, new technologies, all these things all day, but I'd like to talk a little bit about, you know, the theme park news. What's going on this week?
Oh goodness. Yeah, now it's probably really hot in Florida. I don't know. I think you guys are probably in the mid-90s by now.
Yeah.
But in Ohio, to have this headline the first week of June, Cedar Point Shores in Ohio starts season after 2 weather-related weekends. Yeah, it's probably hot in a lot of places. It'll probably be hot here soon, but we have been stuck in March for the last, whatever. And here in Cincinnati, I believe last year in the month of May, we had 12 days of 80 degrees or above temperatures. This year, 3. And so it's just been cold, rainy, and just, I understand why people move to Florida, I guess.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't help because now we have the Canadian wildfires clouding up the sun.
Oh, yeah.
But so it is supposed to be warm today. But yeah, for Cedar Point Shores, they're a little bit further north. So it's probably, if it's 75 degrees here, it's probably right at 71, 72, maybe even 70 degrees up there.
Yeah.
So it's, even if as cold as it's been here, they probably didn't break the 80-degree mark all the month of May.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. Someone can fact check me on that. I'm sure they will. But yeah, it's been chilly up here. But finally, Cedar Point Shores is open.
That's exciting. Also, they have wind off the lake, so that just makes it brutal.
Yeah.
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 I don't want to imagine how cold that would be. But it's funny that you say I understand why people move to Florida now, because I don't understand why people move to Florida. You may notice today I have like no hair anymore. You may be wondering why, and it's mostly because it is too hot to have any more hair than this in Orlando.
Nice.
It's just too hot. So no, I do understand that. Of course, I love it, but it's hot. That's all. That's all. So speaking of Orlando, though, SeaWorld has announced they are doing a new drone show, which epic, first of all, but it's going to debut this summer, and it is a really cool sign from SeaWorld, I think, because United has moved obviously away from being a marine park to being a theme park themed to marine life. And we've seen them do this a lot with roller coasters, and they're kind of becoming big parks filled with roller coasters. But I'm excited to see them go back into entertainment a little bit, but this time not in the really marine life focused sense, just as a show. And I'm sure there'll be dolphins in the drone show and other cool things like that. But that's, to me, just going to be pretty spectacular. And I wonder how far, SeaWorld is really pretty much on International Drive. So maybe from that big iDrive hotel corridor, you'll be able to see
That's
that
true.
at night. That would be pretty cool.
It would.
Yeah.
Has there any kind of a word of how many drones they have in the show?
There might be. I don't know. I haven't seen in many specifics, but I bet the information is out there somewhere to build some hype. I bet they put some of those numbers out.
I'm sure some enterprising person has gone through whatever the permits are filed with the city of Orlando and
Of
come up with
course.
exactly where they're going to be launched from, how many there are, and what they're going to be doing.
The length of the show and all that. Yeah.
Yes. All right, and then actually, you'd probably know more about this than I do. Disney has announced the closing of the at Liberty Square. What's the name of the attraction? It's
the Liberty Square Steamboat and the Tom Sawyer Island.
There you go.
So those are both going to be closing officially on July 7th. So we knew they were closing, but now we have a date for it. So go get your rides in. That's like a month and a few days. So not a lot of time if you're yes. Have you done Tom Sawyer
the
Island
replacement
before? Actually been over there?
That's something, honestly, I don't know why, because usually it seems like something you'd be able to get on pretty easily, because right there,
yeah.
unless the Haunted Mansion has the number 13 for walk on, you're going to be waiting 70 minutes. And that's usually the number for the wait there. But the Tom Sawyer, the steam, whatever the ship is, whatever they call the
there's
boat,
two
is
separate
right there.
boats. Yeah.
They're two
Yeah,
separate.
that boat
So
is
I'm
there.
not.
Yeah, no, the
Okay.
boat, you're right. The steamboat never has really a wait, and you get to ride it around. But then also there's a boat that takes you across to the island in the middle, which is the Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah, which we've never done it, and I don't think we're going to be down in Florida anytime between now and July. So
yeah,
missed opportunity. But
yeah,
no, we've never run it. And for how many times we've been at the Magic Kingdom, I can't believe we haven't.
yeah, right. But that's the Magic Kingdom. It's overwhelming. How could you do everything, even in 5 days? It's crazy.
So the replacement, the Cars Land, I don't know what the exact name is going to be, but that's not opening in 26. That's 27, right?
Yeah, I mean, at earliest, I think. I don't think there's even a year announced for that yet.
Okay.
I would be shocked if it were 26, though. I mean, that would be a really quick
Oh goodness,
turnaround.
no.
Yeah.
No, that would be. And there's no way with the level of detail I'm pretty sure they're going to put in there. No way.
Yeah, it could be 28, in fact, that wouldn't surprise me too much. But
really,
it is there's going to be some new elements, of course, and some differences in the terrain, but they've done this Cars Land before, obviously at Disney California Adventure. So I anticipate that'll make the process a little smoother, a little easier, hopefully a little cheaper for them as well to be able to provide that. But I mean, Magic Kingdom getting Cars Land is unfair. That park is too good to add a land as good as Cars Land. That's not fair. You got to give every other park in the world a chance. But alas, I don't think they will.
I'm assuming it's going to be bigger than the one out in California because they're not as landlocked. They're able to expand because there's nothing really behind there. They can continue going back.
Yeah, right, for a while too, and they still own the land. So yeah, exciting, very exciting. So I also heard another rumor that I have to talk about a little bit here.
All right.
Apparently, the port of Galveston in Texas, the actual port, the one that does the cruise lines and the big shipping things, has signed an NDA with some cruise line that is going to be complimentary, is going to compete with Disney Cruise Line, that they are looking to get installed into the port of Galveston sometime around 2031. So
Okay.
a lot of people are wondering, is this Universal's next, is this UDX's next insane step to just be nuts and go and build a whole cruise line? Maybe start with 2 ships, start with 1 ship even. That's a big deal. There's not many things are as expensive as a cruise
Yeah.
ship to build. So I don't know. Do you think Universal might do this? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, if they now, I didn't read the press release. I didn't see that. This is the first I'm hearing about it. But I can honestly, I can figure if they named that they're going to compete specifically with the Disney cruise line and not any other
Yeah.
cruise line, the only company that throw a shot across the bow like that would be Universal.
You would think. I mean, the biggest 3 media companies in the world are Disney, Comcast, and Viacom. Comcast being the owner of NBC Universal, Disney being the owner of Disney Universal, Disney
Mm-hmm.
Distribution, obviously. So Viacom used to own a few parks, Paramount, they own Paramount, they own
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, they own Warner Brothers Movie World. They license these a lot. Like Warner Brothers owns Harry Potter, so they've licensed that to Comcast to use in their parks. The only other thing, literally the only other possibility would be if Viacom was starting a whole new LLC as a subsidiary of them to do, but that's like that's a big
Yeah.
stretch. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's a long shot.
I'd be with you. I think it's got to be a Universal
Yeah,
cruise.
I would be looking forward to the Harry Potter themed ship
Yeah,
because could you imagine going through different corridors and all the black capes walking around? That's
big
people
hats.
taking their wands and just see if the
Yeah.
wand will choose you on the ocean. If
See,
it doesn't choose you, you get overboard.
oh no. For me, I would really want to ride a Minions cruise where it's just everything is Despicable Me and Minions and Gru and Margot, Agnes, and Edith. Oh my gosh, I would die of delight. It would be wonderful.
Hey, but honestly, to your point though, 2031 it's not like we're planning ahead here. I guess it does. I don't know how long it takes to build a ship, but
Yeah.
to build a fleet from the ground up, which it sounds like that's what they're doing. The only if you're Norwegian, you're going to throw a shot across the path of Royal Caribbean.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Disney, it's got to be coming from a competitor in their space, and I don't know
would
that to be
think.
certain, but yeah, I would think anyone who would specifically line out Disney would be someone that could compete in that space.
Yes.
Because I mean, if you think about it, Royal Caribbean is very
Yeah.
successful in their own right, but
Yeah.
I think if you want the Disney experience, you don't go to Royal Caribbean, and if you don't like the Disney experience, you're not going to go on the Disney Cruise Line. So yeah, it's probably I would be shocked if it wasn't Universal, but I've been wrong before. Many times.
The only other thing besides this crazy Viacom thing, because there's their biggest competitor in the media market, but just hear me out. Fun Spot cruise. Fun Spot. They're competing with them. No, I'm just kidding. That would be fun too. Fun Spot cruise. You pay for everything individually. It's like
and you get on for free.
And
I
right,
can do that.
You get on for free, and then you have to pay for a bedroom separately. It's not included. You get on for free. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
So, I do have a question for you, Cleet. This is now
okay.
You've been out of class for a little while, but this is like the final exam. Okay, I don't know if class this is qualified for, but this is a bit of a story problem for you. So, I need you to put your thinking cap on it and go with me off to just a scenario here. So, imagine you are a 1 million. Nice. That kind of focus. You are the manager, owner, president, whatever, of a park that regularly brings in about 1 million people a year, give or take. 1 million people. I don't know. For size sake, what kind of a park is that? Is that a Valley Fair?
Yeah, probably around a Valley Fair. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. On a good year, and I don't know if you work for any of these companies. I'm just trying to get size comparison. I don't know if this is a high number. I don't know if this is a low number. This is just a number I'm throwing out. On any given year, as a park owner, you assume about $1.5 million to put on new attractions or improvements in the park.
Okay.
This year, you have a little bit less than that. You got about a little less than $1 million to work with to spend on new
Okay.
attractions improvements. That's all you got for the year to put into the next year's operating season.
Mm.
What do you do? What's your action
Okay.
plan?
Wow. Well, $1 million is not a ton of money in terms of attractions, like rides. You're not
It's not. I mean, it
getting
gets you
any.
flat, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just
Right.
trying. And maybe the numbers should be higher. I don't know. It may be just from the standpoint of you only have about 60% of what you normally have.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. Personally, I would think it's a great opportunity to reevaluate the way you make your what your park is. I
Okay.
was at I was walking through Magic Kingdom recently, and I saw, they have those little grass pavilions, turf, I guess, pavilions, right? Like it's where the DVC members get to watch Happily Ever After. And it's just like these little places, and throughout the day you can
I'm
just go
sorry,
sit
didn't know
there.
that.
Yeah, there you go. At least I think. Somebody tell me if I think that's what they're for. But um, I was watching some people just playing cards there. They were just sitting down playing cards. They were having fun. They're playing cards. They're with each other. They're
Hmm.
connecting. I think parks, like theme parks, sometimes need to be more like parks, like public parks, like Pawnee, Indiana. So, yes, thank you. So I would try to add in some small little fun entertainment, like what you might see in a park. So there are things you can do for really cheap that just require labor. Like,
Right.
let's say you add a temporary tattoo station where kids can go up and they get, a employee to give them a temporary tattoo of one of the rides or one of the IP characters you have. A little kid would love that. A parent's going to love watching their kid get
Hmm.
that temporary tattoo. It's cheap to buy a bunch of temporary tattoos. It's expensive to pay someone to be there all the time, but that's it. That's all you're paying for, really.
Yeah.
So I think if you did a bunch of little things like that, little forms of entertainment, maybe I think about Disney California Adventure has this cool attraction where they teach you how to draw Mickey Mouse, something like that, but on a smaller scale, where they teach you
Hmm.
how to, build the Diamondbacks, for Kings Island as an example, the lift tail of Diamondback out of
Hmm.
popsicle sticks, and a hot glue gun,
Hmm.
crafts, things for kids and for families to
Yeah.
do together. That's a really good opportunity to put those in there, because you're not going to be able to afford anything that would, you know, maybe be able to be a headline that's going to bring new people in, but it is going to be something that's going to entertain people and keep them coming back once they're at the park. What about you? Do you have some idea of what you might want to do?
To me, it'd be a good opportunity for the organization to do what I call small ball.
Okay.
You don't have the funding to do a big attraction, or even maybe even a small attraction for this year. Uh, a lot of small attractions you could do a lot on a smaller budget with a flat ride, but at the same
Uh-huh.
time, if you do something that is not as well as you could do it, or it looks like you tried to do it on the cheap, guess you're going to snuff that out,
Oh yeah.
and it'd
Oh yeah.
be think that we didn't have enough money this year, so we got this, and then a
Yep.
couple years from there, that no one rides the attraction anymore, and it gets neglected, and so. For me, I would ditch. Don't worry about doing an attraction that year. Don't worry. You maybe invest in a show that might attract people to watch it,
Yeah.
or use that year to remake the landscaping, to do different things with the landscaping. Be creative. Be out of the box. A lot of times, being out of the box doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend a lot of money on it. You could do something completely immersive. Just to go back to what we've been talking about this episode, do something creatively immersive that will generate the thought that people would want to come back and see it again. It doesn't have to be tall, great, fast, whatever, because not every park can compete with that. But yeah, a lot of the immersive experiences can be done just with a little bit of creativity and, or in your sense, pixie dust.
That's right. Yes,
But
that's right.
yeah, so I would definitely maybe the best on a tight budget isn't a new attraction necessarily. It could be a show. It could be updated surroundings,
Yeah.
updated settings.
Yeah.
So that's what to do. Maybe do employee training.
Huge, huge. Yeah, I love that. I do think at the end of the day, there's always something I respect a lot about when a park is adding something to their park that's not bringing
Hmm.
anyone else into the park. I've said it before, but like Queen City Stunt Coaster, Efteling's new scene on one of their rides, a thing like an employee training or an employee night of fun to increase people's
Hmm.
spirits. Like none of that you can put on a marketing campaign and say, this is why you need to come back to our park this year. But all of that manifestly changes the experience a guest has when they're in your park. And that's
It
what it's all
does.
about. Yeah,
And
for
you bring
sure.
up a great example there. The Backlot Stunt Coaster, now known as Queen City Stunt Coaster. That's a great
Yep.
example. They took a roller coaster that is existing and probably some
Yep.
things that had gotten dated with the old design and updated it with very Cincinnati oriented things throughout the ride, which
Yeah.
refreshed it. And sometimes it's not always about bringing more people in; it's retaining the people you got and keep them engaged
Right.
while you're preparing for next.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So that's probably it. Now, here's the real question. If you had
Okay.
$1 billion to spend,
Oh, jeez.
then what you do is you build a new cruise line, you call it Universal Cruises, and you theme it to Harry Potter, is what it sounds
There you
like.
go.
But I don't know. I don't know.
And,
Maybe
and then you
something
make
else.
it free, and then you pay for everything once you get in there.
Yes, Fun Spot Cruises. I'm telling you, this is.
Yeah.
I might need to get in contact with the Fun Spot people and get them to hire me to be the director of Fun Spot Cruise Line development. Um,
Cleet, the director of fun.
That's a great title. That's a great title. I was always jealous when Chuck Salvo came on back in the day. He called himself a happiness architect. I still am jealous of
I
that
like
title. That's
that.
amazing.
Happiness Architect.
That's a great title right there. Happiness architect. Wow.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks for checking us out this week on the Attractions Group. Are we missing anything, David? Am I going too fast?
I don't know. No, 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 not at all. You can
Okay.
take us out of here.
All right, let's do it. The Attractions Group podcast. It's a podcast where we like to talk about the more business sides of the theme park world and things like that. So if you like us, make sure to hit subscribe so you can know what's going on next week. We'll be back here. We like to come on Wednesday mornings, sometimes a little different, but
Absolutely.
that's what we're doing here. So give us a like, comment, subscribe, share. We'll see you back here next week. Fingers crossed.
All right. We're out. Boom.